Discover how smarter project insights can lead to better project outcomes.
Hey.
Okay. Hello, project people. A very, very warm welcome to a brand new episode of the Project Chatter podcast. It's amazing to have you back. Remember to hit subscribe on your favorite podcast player and YouTube if you'd like to see our friendly faces. Now, Martin, have you seen Val Matthews anywhere?
I've not. He is incommunicado today.
Yeah, so if anyone knows where Val is, please let us know because he's supposed to be here. But other than that, are you well, Martin? Any news your side other than missing out last episode because it was your birthday?
Oh, no. Yeah, sorry for missing out. I've heard it back. A very good episode. Yeah, shame I missed it. But, Marco did a sterling job. So yeah, really well done. No news apart from that.
Yeah, I think you should be worried. Marco's, he's hot on your heels there.
I know.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's a bit of competition.
Today, though, we are joined by Sunchana Johnston. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you.
That's amazing to hear. It's always nice to have a guest that is great, and you are a great guest, and you will be a great guest, and you'll continue to do great things because you have an amazing bio, which we obviously won't read out, but we've got, or will have in the show notes as well. But you are here today to talk about why good project planners are like gold dust. Now, you've written an article about this. You've got 10 points, and we're not going to cover all of that in detail. Or maybe we will, who knows? Let's see how it goes. But I'd love to know, before we get into the article, what made you write about this? Because in many respects, it's like, okay, it sounds obvious, but what made you actually put pen to paper and write this down?
That's a very good question. Before we start, can I just say a big cheers to you?
Absolutely.
So cheers with my gin and tonic. And
Cheers.
if you will join me. So here is some whiskey, I'm assuming.
Whiskey and beer.
And Croatian beer. It doesn't get any better than this, honestly. You can probably hear the clunking of the ice in my G&T.
Absolutely. By the way, that wasn't whiskey and beer for me. That was whiskey for me and beer for Martin, if those listening are wondering. But anyway, cheers to you, Sunchana.
Cheers.
You're welcome. So thank you so much for inviting me to come. In preparation, like any good project planner, I watched a few episodes on YouTube on a big screen, then started to panic, first of all. So it was a headless chicken round around the living room, first of all, kind of seeing these guys know what they're talking about. Okay, will I know what to talk about?
You're being very kind. I don't think we know what we're talking about.
We don't. We just make it.
You just
because you make it.
You just sound like you really know your stuff. You know what I mean? So so thanks for inviting me. I really, really appreciate it. I've heard some great things about it. So your guests, so the stuff that you do, which is fabs. What made me write that article? So at the time, I was working as a contractor, as I think PMO project planner, program planner, as a self-employed contractor for a bank in Glasgow, in Scotland, UK. And I had been with them for about 4 months. It was quite a good setup because it was owned by one of National Bank of Australia or something like that. So to my delight, they were using a version of Oracle's Primavera. So to you and me, that means that A, they wanted good planners because nobody else can do Primavera apart from us. Yeah, that's number one. Number two, that would mean that I will get paid for what I like doing. Number three, I was based in Scotland, which means it would take me 30 minutes on a train, door to door, to get to work. And I really enjoyed the work. There was loads of other planners. You know, we had really good laugh, etc. So this guy phones me up, a recruiter, Scottish man, which is obviously very quite usual in Scotland. So he phones me up and he says, okay, are you free for a contract? And I kind of said, well, not really, because I said I would stay for another couple of months. But saying that, always open to offers. Somebody said to me to say that. So he says, okay, so I've got a really good role. The role is working for RBS in Edinburgh, and they will pay XYZ. And the XYZ, my ears just perked up because it was considerably more than what I was on. So I thought, oh, okay, worth a chat. So he goes on and on and on, and he says, look, I'm really keen. Let's go and have a chat. Send me your CV. And I was just thinking, why is he so keen? You know what I mean? And he said to me, apparently, good project planners are like gold dust, as in you can name your price if you want this job. So I put the phone down, obviously sending my CV, got the job, went for an interview, the rest is history, loved it. It had another 5 contracts for RBS in various capacities, in anti-money laundering, other fintech, compliance, open banking, you name it, really good, great guys, a lot of consultancies working there, Deloitte, PwC, Accenture at the time, I think it was Accenture. Anyway, really good, great guys to work with, a lot of freelancers. So we would just get our heads together, say, okay, we've got portfolio, loads of milestones, what are we going to do with it? How are we going to do it? So then having a conversation with this recruiter, and we stayed in touch ever since. And he's been working in project and business analysis actually for a number of years after we pulled him in to work with us. That got me thinking, why would good project planners be worth anything? And especially why would we be gold dust? And I just wanted to put pen to paper. I wanted to really summarize what makes us good at our jobs and why are we able to find work. And just to backpedal a little bit, the reason why I wanted to be a project planner was that I really enjoyed that, always enjoyed planning, loved it. And I realized at one point I was made redundant, which I've written about in my book. It's nothing like good self-promotion. She's showing her little book, self-published. Thank you.
What's the title?
Okay, so it's under Sunchana Johnston. It's PMO Careers. And it's from redundancy to freelance consultancy in 5 easy PMO steps. I've put it as a free Kindle download. Feel free to download. So I started kind of thinking, what makes us good? And I decided to become a planner because I realized that I would be able to find work. So I put 2 and 2 together. Okay, been made redundant, looking for work, want to do this, and the 2 came together. And then, that's what got me into it. But what got me to write the article, as I say, was I wanted to put pen to paper and check with my colleagues. And I contacted quite a few planners at the time. I'd written this in 2015. And I just asked them, what would you say that makes us desirable to somebody? Why are we valuable, for example, to project managers or program managers? And we came up with about 10 points that apparently makes us good.
Nice. Now you've hooked the audience. They're like, 10 points. What are they? Can we get into those 10 points? And that's where you stop and take a sip because they are quite meaty points. But I did write them down because I am a good project control student as well. And, we like to do a little bit of research. So I'll just rattle them off, but we'll get into them. So you've got technical superiority, which I agree with. You technically, you have to understand what you're doing because if you don't, no one else will. Natural curiosity and professionalism. I totally agree with that. Not everyone has that, to be honest. Some people have curiosity. Some people have professionalism. It doesn't always come natural to them. Secrecy, that's an interesting one. So we'll come back to that. As point number 3, you said, you know, secrecy is a characteristic of a good project planner. Coolness and decisiveness. I like that one. Yeah, I can see that. Self-starters and motivators, that goes without saying. Sociable loners. There's another interesting one. So there's 2 we're going to dig into straight away. Secrecy and sociable loners. Undervalued project heroes. I cannot agree more about that statement. You know, when things go wrong, it's like, oh, we didn't plan it properly. And when things go right, well, does the planner ever get, you know, all the plaudits, you know, for doing the right analysis and providing the right information? Who knows? Maybe it's getting better these days. Visionaries and fortune tellers. Well, I don't know if planners can quite be fortune tellers, but we can try and do a damn good job at getting closer than anyone else using the data that we get. Stress and recruiter busters. So our friend Chirag will be listening out to this, and he'll be interested in why, you know, good planners are recruiter busters. And then matrix thinkers and doers. Yeah, you definitely have to have that sort of matrix thinking. So I've bought you a bit of time there, Sunchana. You've recharged your batteries. You've had a sip of your G&T. I don't propose we necessarily go through all of those in order, but I really am intrigued by point 3 of secrecy and point 6 of sociable loners. I wonder if we could peel back some of the layers. What do you mean by secrecy? Why is that a good characteristic to have?
That's a very good point. So I think first of all, we all sworn to secrecy, isn't it? Especially if you work for the cabinet office or for MOD. I reckon we all swear to secrecy in that case. I think, yeah. So how can I explain this? The reason why I mention secrecy is that any information that we get, any information that we churn, stays with us, right? So if you're looking for an office gossiper, don't come to me. Yeah, that's normally my way of working. You can see how well I would do in some organizations. I am really serious about this. So, for example, if I'm working with a program director or with a senior project manager, like I normally do as a project planner, he or she will tell me loads of stuff. They will tell me loads of stuff about the program itself. They will possibly run through the different scenarios that will possibly have different activities, different deliverables, different resources, different dates with it. So if I was to go out and if I was to give that secret away to everybody who goes past me, I wouldn't get very far in this business. And I'm serious. I didn't realize that. And to me, I just, over the years, it just developed into, we do that as a norm, you know. So, for example, as I say, if I'm putting a plan together and the program director says to me, this is your plan as of now, put that together, and this is what we are going to present. That is what's happening. And that is what I'm presenting. That's at this point in time. However, he or she could have told me a number of other things that are possibly going to affect that. But that secret stays with us, with him and me. It doesn't go any further at this point in time. I don't feel I'm concealing anything I'm not hiding anything from anybody, but I'm really kind of looking to get most information out of it, churn that information. Yeah, the clogs are going, and I'm sure I'll question him whether, you know, this or this, does that work? What is it? You know, and I had a really good example. Actually, you told me you are South African originally.
Yep.
Right. Great.
For my sons.
Love working with South Africans. Love it. So I had this program director in the financial sector here in Edinburgh, and he'll remain nameless because I think he's the only one there. They would pretty much know it was him. So I worked with him on a really challenging fintech new IT platform deployment program that was like 6 months late, like treble the budget, and everybody lost the will to live. And so I did a program plan for him, went around, saw all the senior project managers, had a good chat with them, combine all of them, their plans, whatever that was, dogs dinners, put that all in a program plan. And ta-da, I came to my South African program director and said, ta-da, this is you, this is your program plan, And I gave him a number of options there, a number of things that we should look at. And he would just slap me down. No, I'm not doing this. No, this is rubbish. No. And I just said to him, wait a minute, you are supposed to do this. Surely we should put that in my mind. Surely we should put that in. And then he just turned around. He's a big guy, black belt in whatever, taekwondo, karate, tai chi, whatever, He's a big guy, so you won't mess with him. So he just turned around and said to me, no, I'm not doing it. And it's kind of smiling, no, I'm not doing it. So I'm thinking now, fair enough, because it's his head on a chopping board. It's not mine. That's one of the reasons why I became a planner, because I did not want to be a project manager or program manager, because I didn't want my head chopped off. So I just said, fair enough, your secret's safe with me. The fact that I would probably present it differently, do it differently, but he knew what he was doing. So it's, kind of the secret stays with us. I don't know if that answered your but that's how I look at it.
If I challenge that slightly,
yes.
In that scenario, how do you influence and guide that person to the right answer? Because there's a risk of just painting the scenario that person wants when you know for a fact that it's either not achievable. How do you kind of work with those people? What are the soft skills that you use to try and guide them towards painting a more realistic plan, more realistic picture? I get that they need to own the schedule, they need to sign up to it, but you don't just want to monkey see, monkey do. So there is a real skill in influence. And how would you get around that?
That's a very good question. So what I told you was the end of the very long few weeks leading up to it. So I use my influence wisely, right? Very wisely. So I felt that I had presented him with the best, most accurate, transparent, live data that I could after spending weeks talking with project managers, and creating that program plan. So I felt that he got the best possible, well-meaning, non-biased view from me. And we went backwards and forwards at different parts of that plan. And I use facts. So that's what I use to influence him. So I will show him. So I will tell him, okay, this is the critical path on this. The fact that there is no deliverables on the critical path might be the fact that you want to question the whole thing. The fact that your resources are not included, or the fact that you need 3 people to do something like opening of the firewalls, that you've put nobody there, as in it will be done yesterday. So it's all of this. So I use facts. But ultimately, I was comfortable professionally that he was going in a right direction. If I felt professionally that he wasn't worth his weight in salt, that he wasn't a seasoned program manager or program director, I would have escalated that. But I felt completely comfortable with him. In being working with him, we literally were all at the one open in the office in Edinburgh, and I saw how he was working. I worked with people who were there supporting him, so I was quite comfortable. And the final decision, this is a good point. I feel sometimes people feel, oh, I have presented this as a planner, and they haven't taken it into account. That, I have failed to influence. I feel the opposite. I feel that I've given it my best shot to influence the outcome. but maybe I don't have all the information. I don't have his head and his brain and his experience and his skill set to say, was I wrong or is he wrong? Or are we both wrong or right? Is it some kind of hybrid? Do we want to find a balance? So, and also, I feel sometimes that there will be, say, 10 things that I know are quite important. So I will present these 10 things. Out of those 10 things, 2 or 3 might be priority level 0 or level 1. Okay. So even if I let him have level 3s, you know what I'm saying? But if I manage to save 1, it's like Silence of the Lambs. Do you remember the Silence of the Lambs?
Yeah.
When she goes at the beginning and she said, I tried to save those young lambs. And even if I saved 1, I felt I have succeeded. So that's like me as a program planner. I felt if I have managed to influence him or her for that one key thing, I'm content. I'm happy.
You can really see the skills there, can't you? A lot of it, there's the technical side of having to create a good plan, and then but the real strength is the personal side, where you've got that, you have that relationship, you've built that relationship over time with the program manager. You're using your soft skills to try and slowly influence and slowly try and build in the integrity of that schedule. And guess what? You got a few wins in there. You got the schedule, better than what it was on day one. Yeah. Going back to some of the points earlier, I'm intrigued by some of them, the sociable loners, the curiosity. What types of questions would you use to try and suss out a good planner? Because sociable loner, that doesn't immediately strike me as someone who would give off a good impression in the 1 hour that you may have for an interview. So what types of questions do you use to really get a good sense of whether someone could be a good, both a good fit and a good planner for the business?
I can see you're there on possibly commission from our colleague in recruitment space.
Couldn't possibly comment.
Okay, so to answer your question, so I've recruited a good few planners, and I've worked as a contractor as the head of planning and controls, or whatever you want to call it. How do I recruit good planners? This is really a difficult question. Because I'm hands-on and I've done this inside out. It's I would say the chances of somebody sneaking through that I can't suss out, that will be an absolute liability, are very low. And I think, it's like everything you do, isn't it? The more you do it, the better you are at it. And sometimes this is really, this is going to be bad. Our recruiter planners will not like this. There is one thing that every policeman will tell you to follow if you're unsure about crossing the road or getting into somebody's car. What is it? One thing that you have to follow. It could be life and death of going into somebody's car, going to somebody's house, if you think something isn't right or something might be wrong. It's your intuition. So how do I explain that to our friends recruiters? That I follow my gut feelings. Can you see my point?
Definitely.
So I want to tell you a story, right? This is a Croatian story. I didn't say I was Croatian. We didn't say that. So for everybody who's listening, if it's evening, dobro večer. If it's morning, dobro jutro. If it's a midday, dobar dan. That was your crash course in Croatian.
There we go.
So one of the guys that I grew up with in Croatia was a problematic boy in his teenage years. Very good dancer. We always used to dance, but problematic boy. It was always on a balance of good and bad. So it was either he'll end up behind the bars or at the front of the bars as the prison guard. So it was very, very tight at the time. So his dad took him by the hand and took him to the police academy. So he finished that police academy, a bit of a problem when it came to allocating the weapons, live weapons, but he managed to pass that after some troubles and had a fantastic career in about 30 years in the police, in the Croatian police. And he's now retired. He's also a war veteran. So he says to me, right, listen to this story. So he says to me, he goes, he's got a case, he's a detective now, yeah, police detective. So he goes in and gets the case of a missing farmer. So the guy just vanished into thin air, just disappeared somewhere from a farm in Croatia. He's like, okay, so he goes, I go to the farm, I see his wife, and I see a young farm hand who is, obviously they're both devastated that the owner of the farm is disappeared, just disappeared. He said he was there in the morning. I asked him to come and have dinner, never turned up, disappeared. Maybe he's gone somewhere, you know. 6 months later, the farmer's still missing. He said, I tried every lead. He said, followed up every lead, you know, that I can. And this is a small country, everybody knows everybody. The guy literally vanished. No neighbors saw him after she said goodbye to him, etc. And he said, I tried everything. He said, I tried everything. I looked into different ways. Is there a different appearance in different part of the country? You know, checked his credit cards, never touched, or current account, savings, nothing's been touched, hasn't crossed any borders. It's a police state over there. You know, so checked everything. He said, last resort, I got the local clairvoyant lady to come in to the farm and tell me where the farmer is. And she comes in and she goes straight for the pigsty. And she says, he's here. Straight for the pigsty. And he said, okay, fair enough. Thanks very much. You know, goes back to the police office, said, so what do I now tell my boss? There is no evidence of this guy at all. Yeah. The clairvoyant is saying he's in that pigsty. Do I now empty the pigsty based on her saying so? What do I do? And I believe in my gut that she's right and that he's in that pigsty. So to cut it short, never found the farmer, never could solve the case. But he said, as a police detective, he believed that man, something bad happened to him. And by the way, pigs are carnivorous. If they were to get hold of him, there wouldn't be anything left of it. So there would be no evidence. So what I'm trying to say to you is that when I recruit, I look at somebody's CV. Yeah, so this is how helpful our recruiters. I look for their CV. If they say, for example, that they've been using a software scheduling tool like Primavera P6 or Microsoft Project, I want to see the volume of the data that they've been churning. So if I'm looking for a senior planner, I am looking for 45,000 lines plus. Yeah. Okay. I want them to have that in their CV. I want them to tell me, what did they actually do? If they tell me that they've inputted data into a software to you and me, that's a data inputter. Yeah, that means they were probably sitting somewhere, getting a few codes, making sure that the codes match, and they filled in those, the sheets of them. So for me, that's not a planner. That's a data inputter. That could be a very expensive data inputter. They could be Primavera P6 data inputter, but they will most probably not understand what they're inputting anyway. And there are no chance that they can put a plan together from scratch. So number one is the volume of data. Number two is, can they put together a project plan from scratch? Can they do it in the tools? Yeah, whichever tool they said they would use, they need to use some kind of scheduling tool. If they're saying that they're using Excel, which most likely, it's just a flat front end, 9 out of 10, there's no scheduling engine to it of any kind. So for me, gone down, but good as a probably, like a PMO analyst, looking at data, possibly churning data, And then thirdly, I want them to talk about projects or programs they worked on. So that to me means that they made an effort to understand what's involved. And they looked at rates, they looked at milestones, they looked at the business cases, they looked at deliverables, they looked at outcomes, blah, 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 blah. So those are the three probably points. And at the end of the day, if I'm speaking to them like I'm speaking to you guys, I'm already churning in my head, like everybody else, can I work with that person? And it's in my book. So I think the majority of people, I don't know how you recruit, the majority of people are recruiting, yes, they need technical skills, but they are recruiting, can they get on with us? Are we going to get on? And can they leave me to it? Am I going to be an asset, or am I going to be a liability to the business? So that's how I recruit as well. I mean, most of the time, as a self-employed contractor, I'm told. You know what I'm saying? Very rarely I'm lucky enough that I can pick my own teams. Yeah.
So obviously you're quite the expert in this field. You've recruited many people. What tips would you give to people who don't have your experience? Like they're either recruiters or they're a hiring manager who they just need to find the right person, but don't necessarily have the skill set or experience. What tips would you get them to try and look for in that candidate?
So remember my 10 points.
That's your checklist there.
Yeah, we'll
That's your
post a
checklist.
link. We'll post a link to the article.
Yes, please.
And folks can go and have a look at that one. But yeah, and I agree with you. There's some handy tips in there as well. But the thing that struck me when you were chatting there, Sunchana, about the farmer, is actually one skill that, and maybe you talk about it in the detail of what you've written down, but one skill that I think is undervalued in really good project planners is the art of storytelling.
Yeah.
The art of understanding not only the depth of detail, but the right detail. How do I convey this message? Now, you just gave us a fantastic story full of detail. We could see this. We could see the pigsty, right? We could see the clairvoyant. But you didn't give us everything because you gave us the important bits. And I feel like that is also really important for project planners to be able to, as you say, be technically gifted, but also be able to understand the context of what they're doing. Not just, as you say, sitting behind a computer, but we've said it before, go out to site, have a look, speak with engineers, look at the design plans, bring it all together. A good friend of the podcast, Marco Frisenda, when we asked him what's his definition of a planner, he says a project manager that looks after time. Very simple, right?
Very nice.
Very, very simple. So it's everything, but the focus is time. And I love that, but I think just adding that extra dimension of, can you actually turn what you're doing into a story that, one, makes it exciting, two, that's informative, and three, has an impact. And I think you've just done that in your farmer story. Now, if nothing else, listeners, take that farmer story and just replace it with a project you're working on. And if you can do what Sunchana just did there, I think you're on a good standing to being a really fantastic planner. I just want to pause there and get your thoughts on storytelling before we move on. Do you agree, disagree? How highly would you put that in your pecking order of a skill or attribute to have in a really good project planner?
Probably right at the top there with the technical skills. You're absolutely right. You're spot on. So for me, technical skills will always be number one. But the storytelling is the close second. Absolutely close. You're absolutely spot on. It's a very close second. Very, very close second. I think storytelling is really important. And we mentioned before, I worked on a number of Brexit programs and portfolios. I think I've worked officially on about 3 different ones. And now I've just had enough. So I'm just trying to stay away from no more Brexit, please have mercy on me. So, and within that Brexit, I don't know if you've heard of the best storytelling that I've, from a senior person in terms of ranks that I've seen. And so here it goes. During Brexit, the biggest issues after it became live. The biggest, obviously, there was political issues to get it through the Parliament, etc., through European Parliament to agree, Northern Ireland Protocol, you name it, left, right, and centre is going. But once that Brexit was finally signed off, the biggest issue is the trade and the free flow of trade. Because the minute you put blockers at the borders, the business starts to fall apart. So one of the biggest exports for Scottish small businesses, which are mostly small businesses, are shellfish. Yeah, shellfish, which is caught up there in the Highlands. Is that my glamorous assistant? Yes, another one, please. Thank you. Sorry. That's my glamorous assistant, you see. Married for 30 plus years. He's very happy. I think he's happy. He's not saying much, at this point. Yeah, you're right. My intuition, my gut feeling. I mean, he talks about that the life sentence is apparently longer than this, but what does he know?
You recruited well. Sunchana.
I'm foreign, thank you. So I just, if it doesn't suit me, I just claim I don't understand. So I was trying to say to you about this shellfish. So the shellfish is caught somewhere in the Orkneys, yeah? It's then put on ice, I understand, put on trucks, and within a day, it used to go past via Dover, and it goes to Spain. And I think that end-to-end journey lasted a day, say, yeah? So obviously now with Brexit, the biggest issue for the Scottish small businesses that were in that field was how long will it now take? Because this is really a perishable product. This is the little prawn, that really has a very short life from being caught to being in a Spanish restaurant on a plate. So Michael Gove raised a very, very good point, and I was very impressed by this. He asked for a storytelling end-to-end of a prawn journey, right? So he wanted to know, from the minute that prawn is caught in the Orkneys in Scotland, going via the ports, down, say, via Dover or whatever, on the truck, refrigerated truck, passing into France, getting into France and down into Spain, onto the restaurant. How long will that take? And I love that question. So I mapped out that journey. I helped map out that journey. For me, what a wonderful thing to do. And I think a message, please, chaps, to senior management. If you ever want to ask a good question to your program director, ask him or her for that prawn journey end to end. If he or she can't answer that as a sponsor or as a senior manager, you've got the wrong people in the jobs and you'll never achieve successful outcomes, never, no matter who you recruit, because these blockers will block it. So I just thought that was amazing. So the little prawn end to end, and this is what I do as a planner. Do you remember, we do end to end, don't we? And I try to tell that story in my plans, in my project plans. I try to tell the story on the little prawn being born, being caught, get on the truck and get to Spain. So that's what I'm trying to do. So you're absolutely right. And that's what I'm looking for as well. Can you see how much I was loved, especially in agile projects, when I come and say, okay, so now tell me the story. What is this telling me now? But you're right, storytelling, it's so crucial.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love, you just added another story onto that, the whole prawn. So we've got farm, we've got prawn now, it's amazing. But I want to also jump back to, I think Martin alluded to it, when you're recruiting, etc., and the whole notion of, fantastic project planners are like gold dust. And then that brings me to what I think the current market is looking like, where governments have thrown money into infrastructure and there's these lots of projects and lots of demand, right? And so the ratio of gold dust planners versus the rest is now, the ratio is getting bigger. So you don't have that many available potentially. Or are we actually seeing the opposite, where knowledge is being shared and we're growing, and through mediums like this podcast and your book, etc., where we're actually trying to pay it forward into the community and growing it? I just want to get your view. Do we have enough good planners to go around to support all of these mega projects. Because if you think about it, this virtual world, we're actually now seeing that you're not just competing geographically, because you can work from anywhere on any project. Yes, there's advantages being physically present, but for a lot of countries, there's still lockdown. You still can't travel to site. So for a lot of projects that have happened over the past 18 months, the project planner, even if he or she wanted to, couldn't go to site because their role wasn't deemed important enough to be at site. So they had to do everything through the eyes of the engineers on site. Anyway, long story, but because the role can now be done more remotely, does that one either open the market up more? So maybe the UK has the sterling and it's got more buying power. So maybe you'll get, more of the best planners throughout the world. Or I don't know. It's an open question, just a thought. I don't know, Sunchana. I don't know where I'm going with this question. I don't even know if there is a question, but I was just thinking. And yeah, exactly. GNT. But yeah, any thoughts around that? The whole pipeline of good planners coming through and the demand and supply in the market?
So to answer your first question, I would say, do we have enough planners? No, we don't. Good project planners. No, we don't. We don't. Because we don't train. Why? Because we don't train any. Because we don't value many of them. And you've probably seen, I posted on LinkedIn a question if other colleagues wanted me to raise any issues. And one of them said it's whether the planners are valued for what they do. I also wanted to raise one point with yourselves. Like in the old days, you would normally get sacked for doing a bad job. Remember these days? I really feel in the last 5 years, it's the other way around. You're very likely to get sacked if you're exceptionally good at your job and the rest of the guys and girls really can't do their jobs. Why? Because you'll be the only one questioning things and standing out. It's like being in a chicken coop and being slightly ill. Yeah. What will the rest of the chickens do? They'll peck on you. I've seen many planners being sacrificed. And this is scapegoated it's a less bloody word, isn't it? Less carnage that people can, but it's really painful to watch. And it's happened to me as well. So it's painful to watch other people being absolutely sacrificed and carnage left after they've been kicked out of the programs where they were actually doing a stellar jobs they were doing, trying their best to produce the right thing, to speak to everybody. That's painful. So that's why we don't have enough planners, because we don't train them and because we don't value them. Yeah.
That's interesting, because I agree with you. I think planning is undervalued because of the way it is viewed, that it's, just someone that's putting a schedule together so that we can say we have one, rather than it actually being followed, or because NEC says you have to have one. So we have one for commercial reasons rather than actually following it for delivery, right? It's not driving delivery. It's just so we can have a contractual obligation fulfilled. But it's really interesting. This is going to go all over the show, this this podcast, which is fantastic. I love it. Let's bring Martin in for one or two, because I know he's got some there as well. Martin, over to you.
Thanks, Dale. Yeah, I'm fascinated by one of your earlier comments about cross-industry knowledge. You mentioned that the best planners are easily able to cross industries. My question around that is, probably in mine and Dale's experience, we found that some of the best planners are the ones who almost stay in the same industry, and they maintain that real knowledge of the industry, the sector that they're in, and that's what makes them unique. That's why they can command the high day rates, the higher salaries, and they're worth their weight in gold. Really, they really are. Do do you find, in your experience, do people transition easily between industries? Like, could a planner go from a defense to a transport to Brexit planning easily? The fundamentals are still the same, but the real challenges are in the industry knowledge.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. Do other planners change industry easily? I don't know. Did I change industries easily? Absolutely. 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 So let me tell you, where shall I start? Let me tell you, which way do I work? So let me tell you the industries and type of programs I worked on. So first time that I officially started working, and I think my title was a project manager, I worked in telecoms and we were building data centers. So that was my first proper project assignment. So that's IT and telecoms, right? Telecoms, data centers, fine, tick. And then that took a nosedive. So I thought, what can I do? So I did a piece of work still in telecoms, more looking at their network and their network traffic as well. Fine, did a bit of that. Then I went to work for Ernst & Young. Why? Because they actually had really good maternity benefits and I wanted to have a second child. Was I officially a planner? No, but I became a part qualified accountant and I did audits and I did due diligence work, which helped me enormously later on. And obviously I had to plan everything that I had to do, These guys really look for a piece of flesh big time. So every 15 minutes was accounted for. Fair enough. But I also got involved with very senior partners and I used to do pieces of work for them, which really helped me. They do loads of research into companies and people, due diligence. And then I went to work for Thames Water as a cost and planning engineer, right? So that was my first foot in the official planning, cost and planning. And I did that for a year. They had their own systems at the time. It took about 6 months to train me. Yeah, 6 months to train me. Worked really well with estimators, with consultancies, with everybody, loved it. So 6 months of training and another 6 months. So it wasn't that bad. I was very low. Compared to a day rate, I was on relatively low pay. Yeah. And then I went to become, these were all permanent positions. Then I went to become a strategic planner for Scottish Water here, because we moved to Scotland from Reading in Berkshire. And this was fantastic. So remember, have you worked in water utilities? Okay, they're nodding no. Okay, so in water utilities, they traditionally do something that it's called AMP4, 5, etc. These are 5-year investment, capital investment, huge portfolios of work, really. So when I was at Thames Water, I was working on one of those portfolios of work. When I was at Scottish Water, I was working as a strategic planner, mapping out all the investment, capital investment, and I did something called technical expression, which underpins which assets will be improved. So strategic planner there, great, water utilities, great. And here comes my redundancy, voluntary, of course, me first. Because I realized, here's a story for you. So I work with a Scottish guy who was a freelance planner, right? I really liked him. He's called John. He's called John McIntyre. I'll just say who he is. It's a good story.
It's a great name.
Exactly. He was such a sweet guy. So he was already in his mature years. He won't take this the wrong way. He's got a massive career of a project program planner, freelancer, working abroad, Dubai, you name it, It was such a privilege to work with him. And I was comparing what I was doing to what he's doing. I'm thinking, I want to do that. I want to do Oracle Primavera P6. I want to put project plans together from scratch. That's really cool. I really want to do that. How do I do that? And I also wanted to know, is it worth it? Yeah. How much could I earn? right? How much could I earn? So he used to come to my desk very often because we would just yap, obviously about work. Duh. No. So we would just talk because he liked sailing and Croatia's good on sailing. So we would just talk. So I wanted to find out how much he was earning, right, per day, because he was a day rater. And another colleague of mine told me that some project managers were on, I think, 250 a day, which to me at the time, who's always been unpaid, I was chronically unpaid throughout my permanent career for various reasons, chronically unpaid. So 225 a day, or whatever, 250 a day was, wow, that's money. So I wanted to find out how much he was on. So I said to him, John, and we up, and I said, how are you doing? Yeah, great. And I said, so if I was to go freelance, I said to him, how much could I earn? You know, so he says, not saying. So I said, well, a little birdie tells me that some project managers in this company are 250 per day. And he like looks at me, walks away, comes back and kind of nearly goes whoosh with his hair. I don't get out of bed for 250 a day. And I'm thinking, that's my man. I love you. I want to be like you. I want to so be like John McIntyre. So for me, the career was mapped out there and then. Yeah, what were we talking about anyway?
Cross-industry skills, so being able to transition.
Yeah. So then, so as a freelancer, what's the easiest thing for a recruiter to do? To put you in exactly the same industry, yeah, and a day rate. Yeah? So I got a job back at Thames Water, this time as a freelancer. So I'm still in water industry, but now I am closer to Primavera P6. Already from Scottish Water, I've done the training. I've got the university University of Oracle, whatever, little diploma, but I haven't got the experience of actually putting the plans together. So Thames Water, I'm even closer. I'm working with consultants, planners, and cost controllers, very close with one of them called Sam. And we start putting project plans together. So I'm still in that industry. Next, my contract's coming to an end. A colleague phones me up and says, I'm here working for a security company, working on hot electrical sites. Yeah. What is it called? Working for National Grid via a third-party contractor. Yeah. We are using Primavera P6. How are you skilled? Do you want to come here? Do you want to work with us? Well, hey, I'm in there. I am in there. So I'm now using Primavera P6 with admin rights, standalone versions, yeah, happy days, playing in sandpits, and I'm on hot electrical site, working with engineers and project managers, getting the information and churning the information and speaking to a variety of them. Does that make sense, putting that into a plan? Next thing, I'm looking to get into banking back in Scotland. And this is, remember that little bank in Glasgow that was using Primavera? So they called me up and they say, can you use Primavera hands-on? It's P5, but can you use it? Yes, I've used it. I'm admin rights, you know, I'm happy to use it. Come in for an interview, got the job. So that's my first foot. I'm now in banking. Via my planning skills, I'm now in Glasgow, in Scotland, doing what I like, which is Primavera, yeah? So then the friendly recruiter phones me up and says, by the way, RBS will pay you XYZ. You will not use Primavera anymore, but you've got banking experience and you've got hands-on project planning experience, yeah? And your rates, and you were a project manager once upon a time, and come and work for us and start using Microsoft Project. And I remember saying, the colleague phoned me up. That was before that recruiter. So Brian phones me up and he says, look, you know, I'm in there, come and work with me. I know we can do a good job together. There is a third planner and we'll get on like house on fire, but you'll use Microsoft Project. And I'm thinking, oh, but I've never used Microsoft Project. It's like, it's easy. If you use Primavera, it's easy. You know what he's like, it's easy. I'll help you, it's easy. And I'll do hundreds of books and I'll do exams. he didn't say that, but that's what I did. So now I'm in financial services. So once that I'm in financial services doing planning, now I'm going through the grind. There's, I think I mentioned different programs. There was a huge portfolio, retail portfolio, and I'm learning as I'm going along. I think that's another point that I'm sure you've raised before, that we have to learn all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I spent some time in financial services, and I did that Brexit in working for an insurance company. So now again, I'm looking what to do. Yeah. And then I get a phone call about a Brexit program, because I've now worked on a Brexit program. I've got Microsoft project, and I've managed planners by then, because I had my teams. And they said, come and work for us, yeah, the government, and do XYZ for us. And funnily enough, it was in a field that I have my first degree in. So it was like, hey, finally, this will come to good use, you know, after 5 years of studying and getting my degree that I've never used in my life. So I loved it. So that's how I made a transition. Nice. And I know what you're saying. I'm assuming if I spent, I think for me, the optimum would be, I would be quite happy if I'm in the same industry for about 2 to 5 years. I feel really comfortable asking for top dollar. I really do, because some of the industries are really fast changing. Maybe construction isn't one of those industries.
Yeah, good point.
But yeah, but other industries. And I watched, I think, one of your podcasts, which was excellent, with a guy, is it Dimitri?
Yeah, Dimitri Formakis.
Yeah.
From Alice Technologies, yeah.
That's it, Alice Technologies. And I think that's the way to go. And definitely any other IT, financial services, insurance, all of that, it's all changing so fast that if you were in that job for 20 years, it's probably all changed. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's different. Maybe if you are under NEC 4, NEC 3 contracts, and you have to know parts of that contract really well and apply it well, which I fortunately didn't have to do. So that's how it's worked for me.
Oh, it's interesting. Yeah, I completely agree with you about the pace of the industry. It's really key. Yeah, things like IT is forever changing. So yeah, I can see how it is more possible to transition there. One last one from me before I hand over to Dale. Val has very strong opinions about this subject. It's about the role of a planner. So how would you define planning versus scheduling, and how much, in your opinion, would you encourage planners to know about cost management, change management, the other aspects of PMO? Do you prefer your Goldust planners to be experts in the schedule, or would you want them to be a bit more rounded, or do they get their uniqueness, if you like, from being just experts in the schedule and using those soft skills that we talked about earlier?
That's a very good question. So I have to be cautious here. So if people prefer to be good schedulers, I think there is definitely a market for that. And I think if they can tell the story from just looking at a schedule, good luck to them. I can't. And I ask of people who work with me if I'm responsible or accountable for their work. Almost all of them have always looked at it as Goldust planners. Or maybe I just remember the good ones. And we just have a really good conversation. And I remember speaking with one of my colleagues who was working for me. Again, this was a bunch of freelancers like myself. I just happened to be their so-called boss. I looked at us all being equal. And he said exactly what I would say. He said he looks at the business cases. That's what I that's what I ask for first. So when they say to me, oh, please put together this program plan, we need this, we need, I just ask, okay, can you send me the business case, or at least a paragraph, or deliverables, outcomes, anything, benefits, anything that you have, that you've committed yourself to deliver. and tell me a story, but and talk to obviously them. But I look for a business case, and maybe in network rail, or maybe in the rail industry, maybe people can't do that. Maybe it's a completely different setup because it's really tightly regulated. You know, I don't know. But from the last 10 years, I always ask for a business case, and I will have a look at the business case. So I understand what's going on. And I think for anybody who wants to become a credible senior planner, I think they should do that. I wanted to, you know, we talked about recruitment. I was asked a really odd question the other day, and maybe you can shed some light. So a recruiter phoned me up again, and he said it was about becoming a planning manager. And then he asked me a really odd question, because I said I was a planning manager, whatever I was before. And he said to me, oh, were you just managing people, or can you actually plan? And I'm like, you can't be serious. Are there people out there who call themselves planning managers who've never put a plan together? And I have a bad feeling there is, isn't there?
I think they are. I think you're right. And, you know, and this is where I think we are a victim of a very young profession. If you compare it to other professions, if you compare it to engineers, accountants, you know, it's been around. Those professions are refined, you know, and that they've been around. So everyone knows what to expect, but not everyone has the same expectation of a planner or project controller or risk manager. You know, everyone has something slightly different. We've said it before in the podcast, where you don't go to your engineer and you tell them how to do their job. You don't go to the finance person and say, this is how you do accounting. Yet they'll go to planner or project controller and say, this is how you need to do your role. And you're like, okay, that's great, but I think I know how to do my role better than you, because that's why I'm doing it and not you, to put it politely. But it's interesting you bring that up, Sunchana. If Val was here, he'd definitely ask you a question around AI and technology and how that might change the skill set of a gold dust planner, right? Because if we're getting into the space, and I know it's only the beginnings of machine learning and AI, but you know, we discussed it on previous podcasts, where wouldn't utopia be where you've got some sort of AI, or call it whatever you want, a bot that says to you, okay, and it just talks to you like, you know, like a Siri or anything else. And, you know, it says, okay, what's the first activity you can do? Or what's your WBS? What's your work breakdown instruction? Does it all for you. And you say, okay, where are you going to start? And you just talk to it. And then in the background, it schedules it out for you. So there's this debate that says, okay, these low value transactional tasks that schedulers do will be redundant. But then there's also argument to say, well, actually, Siri won't be able to tell that story. You still need the human side. So you still then have to be able to tell it. I just wonder, though, regardless, does it change, or in your opinion, does it change what people should be looking for in good planners? Because as we know, technology usually starts off slowly and then it ramps up. And I think we're seeing that starting off slowly, but in our field at the moment. But there's plenty of companies out there that are starting to explore this. And probably within the next 5 years, I'd say, if not sooner, we will see this becoming commonplace, where at the moment, people are a little bit nervous around. It's a bit like when Bitcoin first came out, right? It's like, oh, machine learning is coming out now in risk, and it's coming out in scheduling. And does it work? Do we trust it? You know? But sooner or later, they're going to go, we can't live without it now. What's your views on that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's definitely coming. There's no doubt. By the way, I'm really, I'm a volunteer and a big believer in volunteering, and I'm part of Association of Project Management, and I'm their chartered whatever, fellow, whatever. I do a lot of work for them. And I attended a conference a couple of years ago, obviously before COVID. And it was exactly, we were exploring exactly that very AI topic in project management overall, and you're spot on. And the chap who was presenting, I cannot remember his name for the sake of me now, but he just said absolutely what you're saying, music to my ears, as in huge market, almost completely unexplored at the minute. and it's absolutely open to everybody for taking. So I couldn't agree more. There'll be definitely huge changes. I, however, love the way that people are going about it. And I think it's just like a little ducky waddle. It's like, it's a ducky waddle. And it's like, what I normally, people go and ask me, do you want to help us with AI and all of that? Yeah. And by the way, the people you'll be working with, they know nothing about project planning. And I'm like, happy days. Do you know what I mean? Great. So I agree with you. And it totally makes sense that a chatbot or whatever will start scheduling. Yeah. And remember that first conversation, you call them schedulers. I call them data inputters. Yeah. I don't even give them the luxury of no, I don't. Because for me, if you're a data inputter, great. It's a great job. You love doing it. That's great. But there is a huge difference in being a data inputter and being a gold dust project planner. Huge difference. In my case, 20 years and a lot of investment of time and money and being on programs that probably nobody else wants to touch with a barge pole. Nobody wants to touch with a barge pole. So there is a reason why the data inputters are data inputters and why the gold dust planners are gold dust planners. So definitely there is a market for that. And I think that's coming. We know it's coming. Obviously it's coming. But what it reminds me of, does anybody remember, and I used to sit in an office down in Reading. Does anybody remember about, was it 10, 15, 20 years ago nearly, when voice recognition first was kicking in?
Yeah.
That AI, it was first kicking in, and it was down, I think it was Vodafone. And I remember being in the office and somebody phoning Vodafone and hitting the roof saying, my name is, and then obviously nothing happened. My name is, and nothing happened. John Smith. Nah, it's not George. And that went on for like 15, 20 minutes until the poor John Smith, slammed the phone down saying, voice recognition. But look at it now. Look at Alexa, look at it now. So I think, number one, obviously it's coming. Number two, will it take jobs? Yeah, it will take jobs away from data inputters. Number three, we talk about ethics, and we talk about intuition and gut feelings. And our lovely computers, for now, are nowhere near there. The algorithms that people put in, yes, they will get better and better, and I know that they will be beating us in chess, and I'm not worried at all. I'm actually embracing it. I'm really excited about it. I think there will be definitely space for all of us. There is no doubt. I think we have, I don't know about you, I think we have another 5 or 10 years at least before this even becomes a reality. And even with that, as I say, I understand it's relatively easy to get a computer to do repetitive tasks, but the ethics of it, to my knowledge, haven't been touched.
Yeah, I agree with you. No, I agree with you. And it's just an interesting space because we don't know what the future holds really in reality. All we do know, and I agree with you, we have to embrace it. Technology is here to stay. And I agree with you. Ethics is one, storytelling is another, right? And if I was here, he'd say again, Dale says it often, every project is a unique endeavor with a definite start and a definite end. So every project has a different story. So we can't have the Alexas and the Siris of the world telling us, the same story for different projects. So anyway, listen, it's been an amazing time chatting to you, Sunchana. It's obviously we've gone over the hour mark and we could go even further, but we do want to make space for our feature at the end. And as you say, you have watched one or two, so you know what's coming your way. So if you're ready, I'm going to hand over to my lovely assistant, Mr. Martin Carriston.
Lovely assistant. Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. Okay, so this is our guest feature. It's called Defend the Indefensible. It's where we invite our guests to defend a ridiculous statement for 30 seconds. it's inspired by some of the wonderful statements we've all heard over the course of our careers. I'm guessing you know the routine by now. So yeah, if you're willing, we can give it a go.
Okay.
Okay, right. So Sunchana, your statement to defend is, forget planners. It's actually risk managers who are like gold dust. They can predict the future. Discuss.
Absolutely. Risk managers are the best to look into the crystal ball. And I think every program should have a crystal ball. And I mean physically, they should have a crystal ball, which they should spin at regular intervals at the start of the day and at the end of the day. Within that period, they should make absolutely executive decisions in terms of which way the crystal ball is facing. And they should absolutely look at every detail of the crystal ball, especially as the light shines from the window. So the risk manager can be absolutely crucial on any program. Why? Because they have a crystal ball, and B, there is light coming at the end of the tunnel. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot. Didn't sound too painful, actually. I'll show this to some of our risk colleagues. I'm sure they'll be impressed. Okay.
I think I'll get short, but that sounds
I love it.
That's great. Before we go, got time for one more feature. It's called Fiverr. 5 quick fire questions all about yourself. So again, if you're willing and keen, let's make a start.
Okay.
Quick fire. Okay, question 1. Would you rather spend your day with people or technology?
People.
What's more important, time, cost, or quality?
Time.
Spoken like a true planner. Number 3, what's the best book you've been gifted?
Oh, is that? Oh, mine.
Who's gifted you your own book?
Me.
Good gift. Number 4, what's the biggest mistake you've made on a project?
Oh God, joined in the first place.
And last one, if you could choose to spend a day with anyone, past or present, who would it be and why?
My husband.
Nice. Oh, very good.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot.
That's fantastic. Sunchana, it's been amazing. I love how you've used your own life experience, your own career path, your own journey to explain all the points we've tried to cover today, because, you know, it's those real life experiences that people often miss out on. They hear the theory, right? And that's dry, or they hear a thought of how things could or should be. But what you've done is bring it to life and say, learn through my experience. This is what's happened to me. It's not the same for everyone, but here's the way things can go. And I love that you've put it into a story, you've packaged it, and I've had an absolutely fun time with yourself and Martin. Before we let you go, do you have any final thoughts you want to leave our listeners with?
I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to have a lovely evening with yourselves. Absolutely enjoyed every minute. And I think my advice to everybody who's thinking of possibly changing careers or improving or whatever, becoming a planner, absolutely do it. You'll love it. It's a mix of art and science. It's a lot of laughter. It's a lot of tears. It's a lot of money. So you become a gold dust planner. It's absolutely worth it.
Awesome. It's a lot of everything. And if nothing else, go ahead and get Sunchana's book. We'll post all the links in there.
Definitely.
Martin, any final thoughts?
The thing that really struck me was everything links back to people skills. So whilst planning is quite a technical industry, we're talking about storytelling, intuition, continuous learning from your colleagues. Everything links back to people, and it's an interesting theme we found throughout the podcasts. And again, it's ringing true. Dale, yourself?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. The beauty about it is not only are we exploring all of these topics and sharing them, but we're also learning a lot from them as well by exploring them. So yeah, I totally agree. But folks, that is all the time we have. Martin and I are going to, after this podcast, go and have a look and see if we can find Val somewhere. But for you, remember to hit subscribe on your favorite podcast player before you go. Again, a massive thank you to our guest, Sunchana Johnston, and thank you all for listening. Till next time, we say stay safe, be disruptive, and have fun doing it. From me and Martin, it's bye for now.